Welcome back to Totally Unexpected. Today's guest is Sheva Givre. Sheva is a married mother of 4, was born and raised in the beautiful desert of Arizona, and lived in Baltimore, Maryland, but recently moved to Parkland, Florida. She used to be the author and photographer of the inspiration blog My Shtub, where she photographs and writes about the joys and challenges of family, motherhood, and raising a child with special needs. In recent years, she changed her advocacy from blog writing to using social media as a place to share her family. Okay, Sheva is the best. I loved this conversation. Okay, there's so many things that I love about Sheva, but one of the things that really stands out for me is she says it like it is. No holds bar, like with such a sense of humor, the sarcasm, the dark humor, just like the authenticity, the realness. You're just going to get it. And you know me, like that's my jam. So this conversation, although we talk about some weighty subjects and experiences, like there's such good humor around it, and it's such a fun listen. So I can't wait for you to tune in and enjoy. Today's episode is sponsored by Eastside Kosher Deli in beautiful Denver, Colorado. You guys know we love traveling, and we've been to Colorado many times. When traveling, kosher food tends to be the biggest headache. Whole Foods and Trader Joe's are nice, but they don't always get the job done, if you know what I mean. You want to show up to your hotel or at your cabin or your Airbnb, and you want to have everything ready to go. Gourmet meals delivered straight to the lodge, an entire Shabbos prepped with everything in mind, from a Kiddush cup to fresh challah to Havdalah items to fit your particular needs. Eastside Kosher Deli has perfected this service. They are your go-to for all things vacation. They have a truck that travels along the I-70 almost every day. So whether you're skiing at Vail or Breckenridge, Steamboat, or Aspen, they've got you covered. You fly out west, don't worry about a thing. They also ship to Park City, Taos, Big Sky, and Jackson, and everywhere in between. So if you're going on a summer trip to Rocky Mountain National Park or Zion or maybe Yellowstone, they know the area. Their service is 5-star, and you can leave the stress about food to them. They are a one-stop Jewish kosher concierge. You can order from their restaurant menu or their deli, grocery items or sushi, frozen or fresh, they've got it all, and even accept orders for custom-made catering to match your needs. If you want to chat live with a person and get more info and ask questions, you can do that on their WhatsApp. I'll put the phone number in the show notes, and you can visit their website, www.eastsidekosher.com, or email. All this information is going to be in the show notes for you. It is a well worth it service. Traveling out west, not a lot of options. And so Eastside Kosher Deli really can make your trip so much easier. We've used them. We've experienced them. We've been there. You won't regret it. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm so excited to get you on here because first of all, you're hilarious. I watch your stories and I just I crack up, whether they're about seashells or, important things. But I don't know, you just have the best sense of humor. Did that come naturally? Are you always funny?
I don't know, but someone once said to me, they're like, that humor, your sarcasm and humor is a form of coping. And I'm like, yeah, of course it is. And it's funny.
Exactly. What do you think it's there for? I always joke, my husband and I, my husband has pretty dark humor. And, when you go through hard stuff, you have to laugh and you have to make these horrific jokes that I feel if someone would overhear the jokes we make, it would be really bad. But
100%.
But there's sometimes when it's the hardest thing, and then my husband will crack this insane joke, and it just it's almost I imagine it releasing some of that pressure from the pressure cooker, it just releases that pressure valve. And I'm just like, you have to be funny. You have to have a sense of humor, or else life is too scary and too hard, and we can't take ourselves too seriously. So I'm all on board for that.
I am too. And I feel like because I put myself in this funny situation, like things happen to me all the time.
Yes,
And I'm like, how does this stuff happen to me? But it's like almost like Hashem is like setting me up for like, all right, you're into this. I'm going to set you up like yesterday, and I cried. But it's what it is.
It's great. I think it's great. So, which brings me to like, okay, tell me a little bit about like where you grew up and like some of your childhood, some of your, experiences, like what made you who you are today? Like give us some deets.
So I grew up in Tucson, Arizona. I don't know if you know Arizona at all.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. And I've been to Tucson.
Tucson's on the very bottom of Arizona. I tell people it's like, and it's on the border of Mexico. And so it's almost like I didn't grow up in America. Sometimes I feel like the cultural nuances that I have growing up, I thought it was East Coast versus West Coast, but it's not. Like I speak a very horrible Spanish, and that is because I went to public school. Like nobody spoke English. Like it's just the lifestyle I grew up in. And I definitely have learned that even from Phoenix to Tucson, it's a whole different world that I grew up in. That was definitely a unique growing up. We grew up on my own land. We had, I don't remember, maybe about 10 acres, maybe more of land in the middle of the desert. And there was some really, really beautiful things about that, and some really, really hard things about growing up in that type of world.
Yeah.
I'm a Gen X, I've kind of taken pride in that recently, because I kind of feel like we're like a cool generation.
Yeah.
And my parents are were that hippie generation before that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a tough childhood. It's funny because I don't love the word trauma. Like, I feel like trauma is so overused now. Like everybody has trauma.
It's like a hot button word. Yeah. And everyone just like everything is a trauma, right? Like it's so much more nuanced than that, right? And we have to differentiate between like, oh, this was uncomfortable to like, that was traumatic,
Like, stop using that word. Like, you didn't, just because you didn't get your sale item at Target does not equal now you have trauma. But like.
Right. But maybe for some of the kids in this generation, it feels very traumatic.
But what I found interesting is that when I went into therapy in my adult years, and my therapist, for insurance purposes, to be able to get me the right therapy and to be covered, as there's a certain checklist of childhood trauma, and I checked off a lot of those checks. So yeah, and I did have childhood trauma, and the way I coped with that was I was not such a nice person. And like we talked in the beginning, like I like funny things and I like stuff, but often that funny was at the expense of others. And I would say like I was mean a lot. And, we have fight or flight in us, and mine was to fight. And I know sometimes that's referred to like differently, but like we're fighting for something, but I wasn't fighting for anything. I just fought a lot. I fought everybody.
Well, maybe you were protecting yourself, and you had this like bravado of like to make sure that you were strong and you didn't get hurt and you could handle life. And sometimes that turns into,
just tough kids.
Like super tough.
I went to public high school. I ended up getting expelled and kicked out of public high school. And it wasn't for getting in fights. It was more like just making mischief, just causing havoc in the school, doing things like flooding bathrooms so that we could skip school, like the things like that, like just creating havoc. And I ended up having to go to a school for kids that were problem kids.
Oh.
Yeah.
What was that like? Was it in Tucson?
Yeah, it's an alternative high school. And ironically, my brother, who's about 4 years younger to me, maybe 5 years, him and I had a similar type of personality. He was like always in fights and bullying everybody. And him and I both went to that school. Everything is from Hashem. I thank Hashem every single day I went to that school. One of the things that was required of that school is that you had to every morning meet with your school counselor, but you were actually getting therapy at that time. Like they would kind of sit with you, like, what do you need? What's going on? At 15, they got me a job. Legally you can't work at 15. They got me a job because I had like my basic needs weren't being met. So I was able to get a job so I could buy stuff that I needed. And that
you needed to live. Yeah.
And I ended up moving out of my home. I want to say around 16, around that time. I wasn't living at home. And so they helped me. So I think that those years of going to that school and having therapy, and this school is made for kids like me, and they Like we were allowed to swear at our teachers because they were like, that's out of all the things that you have to
Of
deal
all the
with in
things you
life.
can do, let's keep it at that.
Yeah. And like, I mean, this was in the 80s and late 80s, early 90s. And it was pretty progressive at the time. They let me
I was
like
gonna say, like, was that like really like ahead of the time? Did you think that they were therapeutically informed and they were
no idea. I don't even know, but I will tell you is that it really saved me from a lot of stuff because it gave me what I needed and I graduated high school and was able
structure?
to go on in life. Yeah.
So
And my
how did you
brothers,
like, sorry for interrupting.
yeah.
How did you like, so you were a troublemaker in your regular public high school. Was there no room for making trouble in the therapeutic high school or the whatever
Oh,
the what's it
yeah,
called?
there was like just had very different tolerance and different policies. So yes, there was room. They allowed us to like fight and argue,
Mm-hmm.
but it had to be a certain way. I remember to this day, there's not a lot I remember, but I remember this one. I wore a shirt once to school. And I think I need to preface this. I was very into the punk rock alternative scene. So I was that kid,
Okay.
in all black, dyed
Yes.
hair, shaved hair, whatever it might be.
Really? Oh my God.
And I came to school once with a t-shirt that said F racism, right? Good message. But
Good message
their rules were no swear words, period, on clothing.
on
So
clothing.
they said, turn it inside out or go home and change.
Mm-hmm.
So I left, of course. I wasn't turning my shirt inside out. And all my friends, like, oh, I forgot about this. They used to have this thing called a fishbowl. So we would if someone got in trouble and they didn't agree, they would make us all go into the like auditorium and we would debate it. But you're only allowed to talk if you had the microphone. And we would debate why that person should or should not be in trouble or whatever issues we had. It was really, really ahead of the times.
That's pretty amazing.
So everybody was like, she should be allowed to wear it. We were all angry. So that night, a group of friends and I came back and we wrote the F word on the street. Like how wide is a street? I don't know, like 20 feet. I don't know. In letters that big in front of the school in bright red, like lettering.
Like spray paint?
No, I think we took like house paint with rollers and just rolled it onto the street in huge letters. And I don't remember getting in trouble for that. Like they kind of were just like, yeah, these are the kids we deal with.
Wow. That's pretty cool. I want to go back to a second what you said, like in therapy, like they had this like checklist of like, oh, you actually fall into the category of like childhood trauma.
Yeah.
Was that like the ACEs score? The ACEs?
I don't remember what it is. I don't know.
It's really interesting because, I went to like this workshop a long time ago, this like therapeutic seminar workshop, and they were talking about, kids with trauma and attachment struggles. And because I have like 5 adopted kids, like I was very interested in this. And I really, really wanted to understand more of like what causes like breaks of attachment and what causes, kids to really feel unsafe and act out. And so there's this thing called the ACEs score. And there's like 10 scenarios and like it's a check. And you like, depending on how many checks you have, that is like, how much big T traumas. We're not talking about, like you said before, like little T traumas. We're talking about big T traumas. Like, okay, they're on the list. Example is like divorced parents, suicide.
Yes.
Yeah. Incarceration.
Yeah, exactly.
Drug abuse. What else is on there?
Like, as I said, I don't want to publicly describe, but yes, I had some of those checks. And that is when I realized I didn't actually understand or know until way into my adulthood that was considered trauma. Like this was my life. And these were hard things I dealt with. And I was a hard kid. I did a lot of self-blame. I was just a hard kid. I'm a hard personality. I'm a mean kid by nature. Like I would say, even to this day, my kick flex reaction to things is to be like rough. Like my husband heard me on the phone the other day and we were fighting the insurance company, and fighting the insurance company is my like piece of hell. Like don't fight. Yeah. Like it's the worst to get things approved by insurance. And they were saying something to me, and my husband, all he hears from me say is, do not speak that way to me. I am a grown woman, and that is a disrespectful way to speak to a grown woman. And my husband in the background goes, oh no. Oh no.
Oh no, here she comes.
Like they're done. They're done. And it takes like everything in me not to be that person all the time. All the time I want to say things like that, and I have to hold back and not be that person. And it's interesting that I didn't associate what happened to me in my childhood with that person as a form of survival. And it took therapy for them to say, you weren't a bad person. You were surviving. And this is how you survived.
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
like, I flooded the bathrooms in high school because I was surviving. And like, it's funny because with my kids, I would so see that. But for my own self, I didn't give myself that grace. And now I do.
Yeah. It's super fascinating because, you know, everyone kind of responds differently to the circumstances that they're in. And I think we were talking about this on Instagram or messaging, and it was like, you know, some people respond to trauma. I'm putting my hands in quotation marks, or whatever hard things they went to, with like people pleasing, right? And just conforming and like, you know, not making any waves, not calling attention to themselves. Like that's their survival instinct. And then some people are, you know, more strong and more rough and like, don't mess with me, right? Like, this is my protection. Like, don't mess with me because I can protect myself, you know? And it's interesting to see like everyone's different coping skills of how to survive.
100%. And it's very interesting. And it's funny that like, I remember my mother once said to me, she goes, my name in English is Alicia. And she goes, Alicia became much nicer when she became born again. And just to give you an idea, both my parents are Jewish, but I'm born again to them. But and it did making some connection with Hashem and like kind of healing what's within me. And that was with therapy and connecting to Hashem. And even when I became about tshuva, I was not always still like a friendly, kind person. I have so many moments in my life, even as a frum person, that I am not proud of. And it's taken many, many years. And again, like years of therapy to be able to not be this person. And I still have to check myself. Because I can be tough.
So how do you check yourself? What does that look like?
First of all, social media can be a hard one. We all want to react to these things. And I have to be very non-reactive.
Right.
First of all, because, and so that included like, I'm on Instagram, I post a lot, but I don't follow a lot. I don't follow what a lot of people do because some of it can be very, very triggering for me. And I immediately want to be like on like a, you know, warrior, like you are. And you know how people say like, oh, those people would only say that because they have, you know, they're keyboard warriors, but in real life, I would say it in real life.
Right. You put your money where your mouth is.
And that's not always good. There is a value in sometimes not saying anything. And I think that there is just times like I feel very passionate to like people to hear that I'm right and that they're not. And I've had to let a lot of that go. And it's funny though, when I've let a lot of that go, it gives me a little bit more understanding to other people. So like right now, like for example, all the stuff going on with these Palestinian protesters in like the college campuses, I don't hate them as much as you think that we all should. As much as they create havoc, I feel like I get where you're going. You feel passion and you don't feel heard and you feel so strong and it's so wrong. You're so wrong. But I see where you're coming from. Like that energy, that's my energy.
Yeah.
And I actually met my husband in college when we were in college many, many months ago. And he headed an Israeli activist group. And that's how we met. And he was like the only other yarmulke on campus. And I was frum at that point. We met that way. And he continued on in this life. And I didn't. I was like, I can't do it anymore. I don't have it in me because I am so passionate. I was the one, like when we would have debates in school with these Palestinian groups in college, and this was in like the late 90s, I would be the one that they would use to like scream and yell at them because I was the one who was going to fight them. And I was quick-witted and I was strong and like, don't fight me. And like, my husband's much more adult, but he's really smart, but he's much more adult. Like
he's softer about it.
Yeah. And so I had to like learn to like step back, and not always, like I'll have my moments till this day, but I seem to try to keep those moments for really important things.
Right. You'll like save them up. You're like, I'm coming out to play. I'm using it now. It's worth it. For me also, like so often I find that I have to stay away from the news and stay away from the things that are happening in the world, because I actually like, I feel it in my heart. I feel it in my chest. Like I get so dysregulated, and it makes me so like, one of the things that are the biggest thing for me to like kind of try to let go is that I get so like, how do you think that? Like, how could you as a, you know, functional, smart human be so wrong about the facts? And I like want to shout it from the rooftops. And I get what you're saying about the protesters, especially because you have experience of being really passionate and using your voice and almost like in a rebellion kind of way. So many of these kids, like they don't really know what they're shouting for. They're just like, oh, here's a cause that I can use my voice for. And I think it's humanitarian because I don't have all the facts. And I think I'm like being really empathetic and kind. And I think I'm, sticking to the underdog, but it's such a lack of information. But where that passion is coming from, if we pause for a second, could be relatable.
It reminds me of writing the F word on the street.
Yeah. You were saying it for a good thing. You're like, F racism, right?
But it turned into a whole thing about the F word, which is so stupid. Who cares, But like, and it was making a point of freedom of speech, but this is not the way to do it. But that's what I get it. And I was like this Israeli, like pro-Israeli poster. I was like a tough one, and now I can't even look at it because it causes me such visceral, like you said, pain, like to see what's going on right now in Israel and to connect all these things. It's heart rate and wrenching for me. But even now, from who I am, like 15 years ago, who I was 15 years ago, when I had my daughter, and I'm going to kind of go into this, when I had my daughter, Rozie, which many people know or don't know, thank God I have 4 wonderful, wonderful children. And my 3rd child was born unexpectedly with Down syndrome. And when she was born, and I've told this story many times, but I always feel like it doesn't get old, is that we didn't know. And I had an ultrasound. I had tests done. This was before like the Materna 21 test that they can give now. It's a test. This was before that. It's about 12 years old, that test. She's 15. Okay. So the only other choice would be ultrasound if they see signs, and they didn't see any markers. She has what's called, people with Down syndrome, it is considered a facial deformity. I hate that word, but it is. And her features are considered soft and they're not a severe deformity. So because of that, it wasn't detected in utero. So we did not know. So it was a big surprise when she was born. And my doctor, I'll never forget this. My doctor said to me, he's like, Sheva, he showed her to me. He held her up. I had a cesarean. He held her up and she's this gorgeous baby. And she looks just like my other kids.
I remember seeing her as a baby. She's gorgeous and she still is gorgeous.
So when they held her up to me, I didn't see that. There was nothing. She was very, vivacious. She had a very high APGAR score. She was really screaming. She was doing what a baby should be doing, looks like a baby should look. She didn't look limp or anything like that. So within about 2 minutes, I'm noticing they're not giving her to me right away. And the doctor comes to me and he goes, Sheva, I'm going to tell it to you like this. She looks like she has Down syndrome. And he says, and I'm saying it to you because I know you. He's my doctor I've had for many years. We struggled to have our 4 children. He knew me well. So I'm saying it to you because you can handle it. And I know you, and this is how you want to hear it. And he was so right. Like, don't sugarcoat this for me.
Yeah, just tell me.
Like, I'm the one who wrote the F word on the street. Like, don't sugarcoat it.
I got this.
And so I remember I cried. And I said, like, I was devastated. I didn't know. It was just more like, what is going on? I'm confused. Give her to me. What's happening? And then I said, it was in the room for the surgical. And then I said to myself, I'm going to cry about this. And then when I leave this room, you're done. You're done being upset. Wow. And so I remember them rolling me out and me holding her. And I look at her and she's the cutest little thing I ever saw. And I looked at him and I was like, all right, Hashem, challenge accepted. Let's do this. And I remember clearly saying that, challenge accepted. And that's that personality of that fighter, but then turning this into a positive thing in the world.
It's huge because I think like coming with that strong personality comes with like, you made yourself a boundary. You're like, okay, like this is my limit. I'm going to cry it out. And now like challenge accepted.
Yeah. And I knew nothing. Like I had to like grab the books and I remember she went to the NICU shortly after that for, reasons that a lot of kids with Down syndrome need to, and for a short time. And they gave me like a basket of books and pamphlets and flyers. And they were so terrible. They were very outdated. The kids kind of had that slack jaw face and just dressed badly, very outdated, very clinical looking images. Yeah. And I remember saying to myself, like, we can do better than this. Like, this is not what I'm seeing. So I bought a used camera and I did know photography. I did learn photography in high school when I wasn't making trouble.
You were doing some good stuff.
I actually had somehow scammed the system into I had 2 photography classes. I don't know how, but I somehow did that in some way or another. And I learned basic photography, but I didn't know digital photography. I knew like how to use a real camera. I knew lighting and I know those things, but I knew a dark room. So I learned photography and I was like, I'm going to start photographing her and our journey. And I created this blog. And that's how a lot of people know of me, from this blog many years ago.
Yeah.
And what was interesting is that in that blog, I decided to go with the rainbows and sunshine kind of persona. And this is why I say 15 years ago, me. I felt like there was such a negative images of people with disabilities. We needed rainbow and sunshine. We needed pretty images and beautiful stuff and beautiful heart-wrenching articles about my journey with her. I'm now 15 years into this, and I'm not rainbows and sunshine anymore. Like, that's not who I am. It wasn't even who I am as a person.
Right. You were using it very intentionally. You're like, this,
Yeah.
you need to like see the good side, and you need to see a cute Down syndrome baby, not a,
and relating to her siblings in a beautiful way. And I will tell you, I accomplished my job. Many, many people I wrote for many magazines. I spoke in many conferences, and that gave people a different persona, but it wasn't authentic to me, I feel like. And it's hard for me to say that because I put my heart and soul into that blog, but it's not me. I'm sarcastic. I'm a little dark. I wear all black. I'm not rainbows and sunshine.
Yeah. So do you come about it differently now?
I think so.
Yeah.
Funny thing is I had to have an MRI. I don't remember what for, but I had to have an MRI, and I was in the hospital, and the guy said, "Can I put earphones in for you and music?" And I said, "Sure." And he said, "What music would you like?"
Yeah.
And I said, "I don't know." And he says, "We have everything. Pick anything you want." And I said, "I would like 80s alternative or punk." And he goes, that wasn't on my bingo card. I did not expect that.
Did not see that coming.
But I was like, but that gives me like calm. Like, I feel good to hear that angry music. And I would say now, who am I now as her parent? I would say I've definitely, we're in teen years. And I want to say something really groundbreaking here.
Okay, because I want to talk to you about the teen years. We're going to get into that.
Yeah. So what I want to say is really groundbreaking is that I don't know if a lot of people know this, but teenage girls are really hard.
I mean, I've never earth-shattering. I've never heard that.
I know. So there you guys go. We can be done now. I've changed the
Exactly.
world.
What would we do without you?
Now let's put a cognitive disability on top of that. And this is a new thing. It's not easy. And it's funny though, because when I had Rozie, people in the Down syndrome community did not like my rainbows and sunshine attitude that I was having. I got pushback. I wasn't portraying it accurately. This is not, Rozie is an exception, this and that, blah, blah, blah. And they weren't wrong, but also
they weren't right.
They weren't right either. Like, what I portrayed through Rainbow Sunshine was my journaling and my journey to get to where I am today. And they weren't wrong. Like, there is parts of it. Yeah, I could have shared a lot more of the ugly, but I didn't want to at that time in my life. But I honestly, when she was a baby and when she was little, it was much more
rainbows and sunshine
than it is now. And now it's more real and honest and just awesome. And it's funny because people said, "Oh, wait till she gets to be this age and you'll see what a difference it is." Or wait till you get to this age and see how hard it is. Wait till you get to this age. Well, I'm in it and it's hard and I'm loving every minute of it.
Yeah.
And
okay, I have so many things to say. Hold on. First of all, I really relate to what you're like when people say, "Oh, that's not real. Like, you're not portraying." It actually is real. You're just not choosing not to portray everything. You're choosing very intentionally, like, what your mission and what your goal was to show the other side. Everybody knows about the dark side, right?
Yeah. Like, hello, we all know this. I had a basket of pamphlets to show me it, but nobody knows the other side.
Exactly. So it wasn't like you were saying untruths. It was just you were focused on the good parts and not necessarily the harder parts. But I really, really want to get into this teen, this teen thing with a special needs child, because I'm in that stage right now. My daughter is EC and she's very open about it. She, has special needs, very, different than Down syndrome, but also it does affect her brain and her processing and her cognitive abilities. Yeah. And I'm finding that the teen years and going through puberty is brutal in that area. Yeah. I'm finding also, like, when she was younger, in her situation, it was very unnoticeable. I mean, she has a special diet and special food and things that made her stand out, but like she kind of blended with the group. And as she gets older, like, that gap is growing and the social gap is growing. And I would love to hear like some of your perspective on that, because I'm like, well, this is just getting harder and harder and harder. And she's turning 14 and she's the sweetest, most amazing kid. But I can start to see in school, like, she's relating less to her peers and she's not on the same wavelength as them.
Can I first say that I think our daughters should be friends? Like, can they be friends?
Can they please? Can we get them together?
Yeah, I think so.
So nice.
So first of all, in Rosie's situation is that her disability is on her face 24/7, even with mild facial features, it's on her face, period.
Yeah.
And one of the things about Rozie is that she's not so sweet. And that has been an interesting thing because as a child and as a baby, she was more, but I saw as she was getting older and older, she was coming to be much more of a tomboy and kind of tough. I don't know where she got that from.
I mean, Mr.
My husband says all the time, she is me. And it has nothing to do with Down syndrome. That person is me. And she's not so warm and cozy. And first of all, I want to say is that we're at 15. She'll be 16 this summer. And I'm seeing a light at the end of the tunnel.
Okay.
What I'm seeing is that, yes, there is a social gap. There is. And when kids are 14, especially girls, more so than my boys, I had boys first, 14 and 15-year-olds, girls are not okay with themselves, no matter who they are. I cannot then expect them to be okay with my daughter who is different from them. I just don't.
Actually, very thoughtful and powerful perspective. Because I think as parents, we do expect them to be nice to each other. But if they're not even nice to themselves, and if they can't even accept who they are, how do you expect them to have bandwidth to be nice to other kids?
I always associate the teenage years, because my teenage years were rough. Like, well, before we left Baltimore, and when my youngest daughter was born after Rozie, we built a brand new house. And I was so excited for this house. I had everything I wanted in this house. But when we moved to that house and everything was in boxes, I hated that house. And I used to cry that I wanted to go back to my old house because this house felt weird and it felt uncomfortable and the air conditioning didn't make noise. And I was used to the window units that made noise and it didn't feel like my home. And it was a transition. This is teen years. They're living in their boxes without anything feeling right. And it doesn't mean it's bad. Moving to the new house was phenomenal. It was a beautiful, wonderful new house. It just took time. This is what teen years are. And now I'm going to slap a disability on top of it. And people often talk to me about Rozie's functioning. Well, Rozie is so high functioning. First of all, I just want to one time look at somebody, just go up to a random person with a random kid and be like, oh, is this your daughter? She's so high functioning. Like people would be so offended,
That's so bizarre.
Right. But people talk to me all the time about Rozie's, like, when do we have an okay?
First of all, what do you know about her function?
Exactly. Because she looks put together. Well, I did her hair.
And I dress her well. Right?
I dress her. If she would have had a choice, she'd be a Nike bike, like she'd be a Nike, like a t-shirt at shul and basketball shorts. Like that would be her choice. But I often like back to her being like high functioning, you say, well, she's so high functioning. But one of the things about her is that she does function at a higher cognitive level than is what is usually perceived in Down syndrome.
Yeah.
But the downfall to that is that she tells me, and I see it, she doesn't feel like she has a place in this world. She doesn't fit into the special needs community and she doesn't fit into the typical child development.
We have the same problem.
And that is eye-opening. And I want to share, but I also want to give her respect her privacy because if she was here standing right now, this is her words would be, wow, Mom, that's awkward. Like, this is what she would say to me. She'd be so annoyed. But last year, and I hope that she's okay with me saying this, but last year, no, not last year, at the end of the school year, before camp started, she goes to sleepaway camp. She said to me, Mommy, and she came to me crying, I'm not a nice person. And kids aren't friends with me because I'm not nice. And I said, well,
how self-aware.
Well, because self-aware, and also like I had been talking to her a lot about it and role playing and giving her examples of things I saw in her school that were not like, I chaperoned a school trip and kids would say, come sit with us on the roller coaster, Rozie. And she'd go, no. And I would say like, they don't get it because they're also your age and they felt hurt by that. And she told me, I want to try to do better. And so we started role playing. We taught like how to smile when we see someone, like being friendly, not always grunting, even if you're tired and crabby, still saying good morning at camp. And she had a phenomenal year in camp, a phenomenal summer. And the camp called me because she's gone there 3 years. They said she was a different kid. And she came home and said, it worked. It worked.
Like the role playing was really powerful and she actually like put it into use.
Yes. And now this year she's in high school and the school she goes to is a wonderful school here in Florida. And the school she goes to is they group, it's not just one age. It's like 9th, 10th, and 11th. And because they group them together like that, I have noticed, and this is what I'm going to tell you the light at the end of the tunnel, kids are starting to feel a little more comfortable in their skin. At around 16, these ages. So when they're a little bit more comfortable in their skin, they can be comfortable with Rozie. And I've noticed that there's more of a comfort than the horrifying middle school years.
Middle school is brutal.
It's brutal.
I have to say that I'm very blessed because ZC is in an amazing middle school and everybody is amazing. Like her
Yeah.
peers are so kind to her. And I think they and I don't think it's like a charity case. Like I think they genuinely
Yeah.
respect and like her, but I still see I just see in the outer world, like she's just not on the same, she's just on her own wavelength. And I really relate to this, like not fitting into the categories, and it's really hard because I can't even send, the only camp she can go to is Camp Simcha because of the added,
Yeah.
medical food and all that stuff. Like no
Yeah.
camp can handle that, and it's hard because she really is ready to go to camp for longer than a week,
And I hear that. I for my boys who are it goes my two boys and then Rozie and then my youngest. And for my boys, the camp experience, and especially going to a Lubavitch camp, they went to Parksville, which is a very well-known Lubavitch boys camp.
Mm-hmm.
That experience was forever impactful in their lives. Does your husband also talk about his camp experience days?
Actually, my husband was not such a camp goer.
Oh, it's interesting.
Yeah, it is really interesting. But my son went to Parksville last year and he had a great time.
So my boys loved it. And to me, that fact that I was not going to be able to give Rozie a Lubavitch camp experience, that was devastating to me because I felt like, who's she going to be? How is she going to connect? She's in a Lubavitch school. How's she going to find that camp connection is so tight knit? And I had to accept that she isn't. And she goes to a very modern camp. And there's a lot of things that we have to deal with. They don't keep Chav Yisrael. My husband and I made the choice not to tell Rozie.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if next year I can because she's starting to hop it. But I didn't want her to have to navigate that also.
Right.
And I just told her, she would come home and she would say, "Mommy, look at this candy bar." We'd be at a Wawa, do you have Wawas? Like a 7-Eleven. And she'd be like, "Look at this candy. We had this at camp. It's so good. Why don't we ever get it?" Like a Hershey.
Why don't we have this at home?
And I would be like, "Oh, because they bring it in from Israel," which is so I hate lying to my children. I'm not that type. We bring it in from Israel and it's Chav Yisrael. She'd be like, "Oh, okay." And now I think next year I'm going to tell her, "Listen, Rozie, you got a lot you have to deal with. So in camp, I'm not going to make you keep Chav Yisrael. I'm going to let you eat the camp food." Could you imagine sending your child to a camp and that she has to navigate the whole world? And Rozie qualifies for full inclusion. I mean, she's not in the special needs bunk. She's in a regular bunk with very modern, very fancy teenage girls. They happen to be phenomenal to her. And then tell her, "Oh, they're getting all this wonderful, yummy food, but you can't have
it." Yeah.
No way. She would be like, she's me. She would be like, no. She'd be writing the F word on the campground.
She'll be like, "No, not doing that." Oh, that's awesome.
So sending her to camp, I had to make some tough decisions. And this camp has been phenomenal for her. It's a sports camp for girls and it's great. But it's for girls who are really into sports. And there's a boys camp on the other side. And they're really these are the boys that go on to really play in college and stuff. So that's a little crazy, but she does well. And yeah, I had to make some decisions, in her life that, it's so funny. When I thought about when we talk on this podcast, I did not think I'd be talking about Rozie and Chav Yisrael in camp. That's an interesting one.
That's the fun thing about the podcast. And it just, you never know, what we're going to end up talking about. It makes it more fun.
I will say this is I have a good friend and we like to go to the beach together and we like to have these really intense conversations. And she likes to really challenge me.
Mm-hmm.
And she'd be so embarrassed if I even give any more details about what this is. But
mm-hmm.
She challenges me on my advocacy of Rozie. And whether her and I agree with it or not, she's definitely made me think and made me kind of change my perspective on how I think about advocacy now. One of the things that has changed in my advocacy is that I feel like I give people who are not where I am and a lot more grace than I used to. 15 years ago with me, a Down syndrome advocate, you don't believe this is a bracha? You don't believe this is a blessing? Well, I'm going to push it into your face until you agree with me.
Right.
Now I get it.
Yeah. Not everybody can approach it the same way you do.
And I have learned that that's okay. It doesn't make them a bad person. There are still heart-wrenching moments for me, moments of things I have to deal with. I deal a lot with adoptions. It's something that I have taken on in recent years of helping from Hasidic communities. They adopt out babies with Down syndrome. You have to have some really thick skin for that one because I just want to scream and yell you're missing out.
Yeah.
One of the things that I talked about with my friend is that we talk a lot about intellectually the idea of a child with a disability and, how understanding. how people would hope and daven for a child without a disability, and having understanding and grace for that, or that when someone feels devastated to find out their child with Down syndrome, having a child with Down syndrome, to understand that that's okay to feel devastated. And I used to not feel okay with people feeling devastated. And I always would say, my goal in advocacy is to get people to realize that this is not a bad thing. Mm-hmm. And now I said to her, I said, I don't know how to advocate anymore, because what I will tell you is that there is no logical explanation I can give you into why this has been the greatest bracha of our lives. The only thing I can say is, and I don't want to take away, all my children are I'm obsessed with my children, but why this was such a bracha, the only thing I can say is there's no intellectual reason. And it's not that I live an easier life with her. People want to put intellectual reasons because Rosie's easier, because I don't deal with a lot of the hardships that other people with Down syndrome deal with.
But the people who are saying that, like, have never experienced what you're experiencing.
Some do. I get it. I get it in my Down syndrome support groups. I'm not part of a lot of groups because they don't like my mentality about it.
That's so interesting.
What I said to her is, I said, I can't intellectually explain to you, but what I can tell you is that every day in our life since we've had Rozie, is I get glimmers of Mashiach and what the world will be to come. How do I advocate that? How do I advocate that? That she can be hard and tough and struggle in school and struggle with friends, and she's sassy and she mouths off and she slams our doors in our face, and it's almost sad because she doesn't fit in worlds, but yet I get glimmers of the future of Mashiach, of this is what it is. I can't, how do I advocate for that?
I mean, just saying exactly that. I feel like it's so powerful what you're saying. And obviously my circumstances are different, and we all have our unique, experiences, but I really align with what you're saying. Like, if you are open to the idea that I actually, I talk about this a lot when I go around speaking about my family and my story, and, through infertility and adoption. It's like, if you can adopt the perspective that every child is a beautiful gift from God, right? And they were meant for you. And it's like you and them were meant to be together. And that journey that comes about that, like, I'm the first one to say, like, there are really some experience that I would really rather not have had, but when I look back at, like, all my children and all their journeys, I really relate to that. There is something so profound and so deep, just going through these difficult or unusual, or you really have to do your own work, right? And you start to peel away your own layers, and you start to, like, really become a better version of myself. Like, I don't think I would have been who I am today, and the abilities that 100%. I have, resilience that I have, or the understanding and the empathy that I have for people's struggles without, going through them myself. And I remember hearing, I was in a support group. I don't remember if it was it was some kind of support group for some unusual challenge. And it's like the leader said, nobody wants to be in this. No one asks to be in this group. Like, hey, Yeah. Once you're in it, you realize how kind of special and profound it is. Do you get what I'm saying?
I do, but you know where I could take it a step further is that I would be in that group now.
You would raise your hand and say, yes, pick me.
Because I had another baby after Rozie. I remember I told my doctor, I'll do an ultrasound, but please don't check and see if she has Down syndrome. I don't want to know. And he's thinking I don't want to know because I was worried. Like, you're a higher risk. And they did, like I said, just check her anatomy, just do those scans. So they did the scan. They said, oh, it looks like she doesn't have any signs of Down syndrome. I go, I didn't want to know. Like, I mourned it a little bit.
Yeah.
I felt a little sad to just have, like, 46 chromosomes. Like, like I got so used to having this lifestyle that I was ready to have another baby with Down syndrome. I would have chosen to be in that group again.
Wow. You almost were like, I don't know, like, well, how do I parent? Like, maybe a typical child. Like, it's hard to go back.
It was very funny. Like, she did all of her milestones really early because I realized I was giving her therapy. I was giving her speech therapy and physical therapy just by habits. I was working with her by habit where she didn't need it. And so she was like talking really early and walking really early. But, and I remember like, I almost felt like lonely. There was a sense of community when I had Rosie, having all these therapists and all these people. And there was like a loneliness when I had her. It was a whole thing. And people just don't get that. And I don't think I can fully get it.
But that gets to be your own unique experience and your own unique like truth. Like no one can argue it. But I have a question about the sibling relationship.
Sure.
Was there a time, because I also deal with this a little bit, like was there a time where like the younger sibling surpassed the cognitive abilities of Rosie, or they're too far apart?
Not yet. Here's the thing is that there are times I think socially. So her youngest sister, Rosie, is 15 and then it's 9. So the closest age of sibling is Rosie's older brother is her brother at 17. So she's 15 and he's 17. That is an interesting one to see because when I wrote the blog, those were the two that were always together, like the little ones that were always together. And now when I see them, they are so different places. Like he is really like, he's like a man and she's still like a teenage kid. But then there's these moments, they say like, if you ever want to know how to create successful inclusion, just look at the siblings. Mm-hmm. And so there'll be times that like Rosie and her brother who used to be so close in age, like 2 years is not a big gap. And now they seem so different. She's in high school still. She's like a year behind in school. He's in Zal, which is, post yeshiva. He's living such a different life than her. But then he comes home and they are running and pushing and fighting each other to sit in the front seat. And like she pushes him and he pushes her and then they get really mad at each other. And I'm like laughing about it because like most people would put white gloves on with her. Let Rosie have the front seat,
Yeah. Yeah.
And he never would. But when it comes to her 9-year-old sister, Rosie has a unique thing that is very unique to children with Down syndrome is that academically she does very well. So socially, her sister may have more that's going on in this world, but academically, like her sister really still, her younger sister looks to Rosie, and she brings out the chumash, she can't find something. Rosie, can you translate it for me? Rosie, can you help me with this? So there is. Rosie will babysit at night, and Goldie relies on Rosie. Rosie's and Rosie also, she has a lot going on in her life. So I don't think her sibling has surpassed her yet. I do believe that probably in adulthood, it will happen. Right now, Rosie, she runs a youth in our shul. We have Shabbos youth groups. Rosie is one of the teachers for the Shabbos youth group. So her sister is not doing that. Her 9-year-old's not doing that. We have a friendship circle here. Rosie is a buddy. So she has a kid that she takes care of. She's not this year we've changed it. She's not a recipient anymore. She's now a teen volunteer. Her sister's not able to do that, right. Even at 9. I do believe that there will be a surpass. I think I even wrote something about this once. I once wrote a thing about it and I started journaling these moments photographically so that when they're adults, I want Goldie to remember that Rosie fed her in her high chair, that Rosie
I actually read that post. I remember that
Remember
post.
That one?
So beautiful. Yes. Yes. And I love how intentional you are about that and thinking for the future and thinking ahead of how things will play out and how she might feel later on. And I really admire that a lot.
It's a tough one. And I'm interested to see what the future will be, but to me, again, what will Rosie's future be for me? I was talking about it last night with somebody who has a child with Down syndrome. We're talking about, are we worried about the future? Some adults, there's a decline of people with Down syndrome. And again, I'm like, Rosie is an adult, challenge accepted. Let's do this. What's it going to be? She'll live independently. How are we going to get her to help? Maybe we'll build her an apartment. Who's she going to date? We'll find a shidduchim. Challenge accepted.
Right.
And I think what's also important with those things and with the attitude I've always taken with that is challenge accepted. We'll find Rosie a shidduch. She'll get married. And it's also okay if she doesn't.
Right. Right. You're you're accepting the challenge of the unknown, right? You're I don't know what this is going to look like. And I don't know, but I accept it. And I also I navigate this a lot. Also, we don't really get to decide the narrative that our kids are going to live. And, we have to give up a lot of that control, and our job as parents are as a support system, right? Where there's support team.
And that is any child. That is any child.
And I feel that is missing.
I know.
Some parents, and I'm generalizing, and it's very hard for them to let go of control. I mean, I'm talking about, never mind teenagers. Like, I almost feel like when you get to teenage years, it's really hard. It's the process of letting go of control and you start to realize that they're their own person. But I'm struggling with that. Like my 7-year-old, my 11-year-old, like letting go of control, even in those ages, like there's only so much that, what's the word I'm looking for? You can like make them do, like they're all people from the beginning. And it's such an interesting process to like realize that. And as I get older, like I'm realizing that more and more.
Yeah. I know my oldest son who's married, and he struggled in his Yiddishkeit. And I think he still does struggle in his Yiddishkeit and finding that connection. And this is also what I always say is the bracha of Down syndrome, is that my acceptance of who we are as humans at our pure level is so different. And somebody said, do you struggle with that? I said, no. I said, that's his relationship with Hashem. That's none of my business. I gave him all the tools. I sent him to yeshiva. I taught him everything I did. Now it's his to make the choices to do it. And that's none of my business as his parent. I don't want him putting in his business in my relationship with Hashem. That's not his business. It's so private. Why do people not realize that?
Because I have this conversation with my husband so often. Like, I think I've said this before, like many struggles with wearing a yarmulke to school because he's in a public school and he's Black and he's already so different. And it's like, like that is such a struggle for him. And we navigated it very interestingly. And like, it's been a journey. And finally, like this year, we found these little,
I remember you posting about them. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if they're like official do-rags, but they're like very similar, like very culturally appropriate for him. Like he really like gravitates towards it. And the crazy thing is that like his head's always covered. And who cares how he's covering his head? With a yarmulke, his head was never covered because it was never on his head. So it might be uncomfortable. And I got some people being like, why that? Why not a baseball cap? Why not this? Why not that? Like I can see and feel them being uncomfortable about it. And I'm like, listen, there's baseball caps don't stay on his head. He never keeps them on. They're really not supposed to wear them in class anyway. And this is what makes him want to cover his head. Who am I to get involved in that? Like, I'm thrilled that I never have to ask him to cover his head anymore. Like, it's really amazing. And I was speaking to my husband about it. I'm like, because it's hard, it's a hard thing, like, especially when they're younger, right? Like you still like, well, what's the boundary do I hold? What boundary do I let go? And where do I go from there? And I think my husband something like Hashem like wants him to wear a yarmulke. And I said, well, that's between him and Hashem. You need to ask yourself, well, what does Hashem want from you right now? Right? Like in this scenario, you find yourself, what do you think Hashem wants from you? Like, yes, we're parents and we have to live by example. And, every parent will pick the boundaries that are non-negotiable for them. But when we get like mixed into our kids' relationship with Hashem, I don't think that ever really goes well.
No, it doesn't. And I think that is a huge thing that people just don't realize in parenting across the board. And that is something, I don't know, people, maybe it's because I'm about Sheva, maybe because I, learned that, Can
you tell us a little bit about like, how did you come to wanting to be more religious and embracing that lifestyle?
I mean, it's very typical. I mean, I went to Israel and it's like, I talked about my brother who was a little younger than me, a few years younger than me. We both had kind of dealt with things in the same way. I became religious. He joined the Air Force. Like it's textbook. We just needed we just needed structure. Yeah. And I found it through that. And he found it through, military lifestyle. Mm-hmm. I remember I went to Israel and it was in the 90s. I didn't go to become religious. I was just like, oh, this is so cool. I think it was like a birthright trip before birthright was a thing. It was like a trial trip. Mm-hmm. And I got to go. And one of the things that really always impressed me about religious families were their family, just this intense amount of family and this idea of eating meals together and all these things that I didn't really know a lot about. Mm-hmm. I didn't become religious overnight. Like I didn't go to Israel and came back with a shaitan. Like I didn't
I find that usually doesn't last very long. Like it's
no.
I always say like things that take a long time to accomplish last. If something's like really fast, it's going to go away really fast.
And even to this day, like people say you don't have that like BT, like they don't get that vibe from me. And I said, it's just being a relaxed vibe. Like I've never felt the need to prove myself. That's just being tough again. I've never felt the need to prove myself, like who I am in the religious community. It's like funny, like when I got married, I had the typical Hasidic wedding and I came out and I was teasing with all my friends. and I had my full gown on, no lace because I don't like lace. And like, like it was like a solid white, it was a typical collar gown, but I had, it was a different, it was my style. And I had a solid veil, and I came out with my spiked belt, like spiked, belt on. And my friends are like, no. And I'm like, I'm just joking. I'm just joking. But like, like it's so me. Like, that's so me. Like I was not willing to leave who I was behind. And a lot of people who take on becoming religious feel that they must leave that person. What I've done is just integrate that person who I am. I'm still that same girl who wrote the F word on the street in front of my school. But now I have a lot more conversations with Hashem about that.
Yeah.
And it helps me to not be that person who's going to make such a drastic choice so quickly.
Right.
Like there's a lot of different things. Like sometimes I want to wear a full sheitel. Sometimes I wear a sheitel with my front of my hair out. And I don't feel the need to do anything because it's 100% in me and what I need to do to connect to Hashem. And if I'm not happy with the way I'm connecting, then I need to reevaluate, and it's nobody else's business. Same with my son. Same with all my kids.
Yeah. I feel like that strength that you had in you that sometimes got you into trouble, like always, everything always has like the flip side of the coin, right? You use it for positive, you use it for negative, but like to see that, I think like that strength in your personality, which allowed you to integrate Yiddishkeit in your way, and is you still like are who you are, is so important and so beautiful. And I think,
and you know what? I love it. I love it. Like there's so many people who became frum, like when I did, like when we all did, like people that are my generation. And I've seen so many of them no longer keeping to it. So many. And like we hit their 40s.
You're going to deny who you are. Like how long can you sustain that? Right? How long can you sustain being a completely different person and leaving everything behind? I don't know how sustainable that is.
That's exactly that's what I talk about with the blog. When I ended writing the blog, I ended up writing more when I had my fourth child. And I said, well, it's because I had another baby. I don't feel I had anything else to say. It wasn't that. Is that I was really good with where I was at. And I didn't feel like I needed to be rainbows anymore. I was ready to be my sarcastic, dark self and funny and still like living my life. And then when I went on social media and I started on Instagram, I said, I'm going to come out here as my authentic self. And that's going to offend people. And I can't tell you how many times I say on Instagram, if you don't like what I have to say, then unfollow me. I don't care. It's private. I'm a private account.
Yeah. Do you find that people get offended, or most people are just like go?
Oh
like,
yeah.
Hilarious.
Oh yeah.
People are offended.
Oh,
really?
Yeah. You think not, but there are things I offend people with. Yeah. And I'll say like sometimes when I make fun of a lot of the weirdness of the frum community, like we got to laugh at ourselves. Why not? We do the weirdest stuff.
Like we do a lot of weird stuff.
And like the grocery stores and like how we do. I remember one time I had someone who left following me because one of our kosher markets was also selling 15 passenger vans. And I was like, are you joking me? This is like a kosher in a box. You got your this, we got this, you got your milk.
And your 15 passenger van.
And someone was like, people really need those. That's like offensive. And I'm like, then don't follow me. Like, this is who I am. And like, yeah, there's going to be times where you see my kids dancing to Gaisha music, and sometimes they're going to be dancing to Jewish music. And some people don't love that. Sometimes I put my girls in short sleeves. Sometimes they wear long sleeves, and we kind of just ebb and flow. And the thing is that at the end of the day, I love this. I love being frum. I love this lifestyle. I've been doing it for almost 30 years now. I have made this commitment. It is who I am. It is just as much a part of me as that person who was before this, even more now at this point. Yeah. And I think I could never imagine going off the derech. I couldn't imagine. Every day I hate putting on a sheitel, and there is no way that I would ever give it up.
Can we talk about sheitel drama? Oh my gosh. So hard. I'm really struggling right now with sheitel drama.
I hate it.
Especially living so far, and I can't access like when it needs a fixing or even like a wash and set, fine. But like when it's not, when you get it like a new one and it needs fixing, and it takes like 2 years to be able to actually use a new sheitel that I got, because it has to get tweaked and go back. And it costs $1 million for everything. It's so frustrating. I know like this is not what people came to hear, but I just, you like touched upon a raw nerve that I'm actually dealing with right now. Cause like Rosh Hashanah's coming up, Yom Tov's coming up, and I'm like, I have no sheitel to wear that I feel good in because everything's either dirty or needs to be fixed. I'm not going to be in New York before then. And it's really hard. And I will say something that's really controversial. And again, this is like so me, like, I don't care. Like I was so miserable in my wigs for so long that I started taking the front of my hair out. Like I take like an inch out in the front, and people can like shoot me down with lightning. I don't care. But you know what happened? Now I'm not so miserable.
And should I not be miserable? Like, isn't that more important than walking around in a full shaitel that made me miserable? I had so many sensory issues. I spent a lot on shaitels, not a lot on shaitels. And yeah, like I have a little bit out and people always ask me, what's your trick? I'm like, my trick is my hair.
You know, the thing that gets me though, like, is that when someone's like flaunting how natural their shaitel looks and it's like they have their hair out, I'm like, come on.
Be
like,
honest with it.
Not fair. Like, great. I don't care. Like, hair in, hair out, do whatever works for you. But don't come on and be like, look how natural it is. And I'm like, really?
If you're wearing a topper, don't tell me it's a full shaitel. If you're wearing a topper and you've done a pony with a topper, amazing. Show us how to do it, but tell me what it is. Like, don't.
Right. Yes.
I agree with that 100%. And I talked about that before on Instagram, that a lot of people will see these beautiful shaitels and their lace fronts. And in real life, the lace doesn't always look so great. And that's controversial. And people don't. And people are like, well, it looks amazing. And I'm like, because even without a filter, your camera on Instagram, is so different than.
Oh my gosh. You're the first person that has said this. And I say it all the time. I'm like, your shaitel looks better on Instagram than it does in real life because there's no filter, but there's a natural filter that happens through a camera lens.
Yep.
That it looks better. It just does.
I once said something recently and people were like, I said, I kind of miss the skin tops over the lace tops. Like, I feel like some people it looked better on.
Yeah. I just want to honestly, I just want to go back to bangs. Like, that's the easiest for me. I can pull off bangs. So for me, I'm just like, then I don't have to worry at all. And it just.
For me, it was always missing my curly hair. Like, I have curly hair. I've always had it. It's really thick. It's really intense. And I'm older now and it's not graying at all. And it's in really good shape. And I'm like, I don't know, how could I do that? Like, this one is a Yafi Begun, and she worked with me to be able to figure out how to match my hair. And now I've gone through there. I have some that are cheaper, that are toppers, but they're full coverage toppers. So I don't get that headache in the nape of my neck anymore. And
it's so important to like feel good about yourself. Like
100%.
Like you're you and you can like, I don't know, there's something really important to that.
There is. And I think it goes back to back to being tough. Like, I don't care if I need to do this right now. It doesn't mean that in 10 years, maybe 10 years, I'll be wearing a full shaitel again. I mean, this is a full shaitel. The shaitel starts like, I don't know, I can't show it, but it starts right here. It's just a little bit in the front, but maybe I won't do that in 10 years. Who cares?
You're not sitting here advocating and saying, you should pull your hair out of their shaitel. What you're saying is no, like, this is what I needed to do in my service of Hashem to be authentic and to meet myself where I'm at. And this is my journey. And this is where my journey is taking me. And it's an ever evolving journey. Like, doesn't mean it has to be somebody else's. You're not saying like everybody needs to do this to feel good. You're saying this is what I needed to do. And I 100%. Feel really comfortable doing what I need to do without feeling, that's where that strength and that personality of like, I know who I am. I know who I need to be. I know what I need to do. And that I feel like is really good.
It's funny. I had someone once say to me like, well, maybe in real life, well, maybe you'll take on more later. Take on what? Yeah. This is not a matter of taking on more. This is not like, maybe you'll take on more and not have any sort of judgment. Like, that's my mean coming back, like, that's why I want to come these quick-witted responses. Yeah. But I was just like, oh no, I think I'm good. That's what I try to be like now. Like, oh no, yeah, I think I'm good. And like, I'm under my breath, I'm writing a swear word on the main, on the front of their house.
Of comebacks that you have.
And I'm paint rolling it on the street of the front of their house. Like, but like,
oh my gosh, that's so good.
That's what it is,
Okay, I have just a few more questions. But I know you're like really artistic, right? And you are like with photography and art. For a while, you were even doing like those cool art boxes and.
Yeah, I did that during COVID. That was so fun.
That was so fun. Did you, you said you took photography classes. Like, is this like where your passion is? Because I feel like you used your art and your photography and you merged it with your advocacy. And I think that's so cool. Do you do anything with your art? Like, what are you doing right now? Like,
so are you ready for this? This one always blows people's minds. So first of all, after high school, I went to college, and that's where I met my husband, and I went for fine arts. So I have a background in fine arts with an emphasis in illustration. And when I went to do that, I was in college and I had a mentor in the art department, and I was a very detail oriented, fine tuned artist. And I said, I really have a passion for like medical things also, but I'm not sure. I'm also creative and artistic. And she said, well, have you ever heard of medical illustration? And I was like, oh, that's so cool. And I was going to go into medical illustration. And then I got engaged in college. And we decided for my husband to go to graduate school financially, because I really was like, what was I going to do with this?
Yeah.
Then I had kids and we had a family. And the way I just kind of express my creativity is just with my kids, like doing art projects and doing stuff with them and making frum costumes from scratch. And so do I always feel like maybe one day I'll go back to all of that and embrace like my passion for fine-tune art, and then my passion for like, passions do I have for medical? And it's funny, when I moved here to Florida recently, I moved here a year ago, somebody was like, hey, do you want to take an EMT course? And I was like, yeah, I always wanted to do that. And so I did. I took an EMT course.
And you did?
Yeah, I did it.
That's amazing. I always had a passion for like the medical field as well. I really, really like when I like making perm costumes from scratch, like that is never happening in my house.
But you're very creative.
But in such a different way. Like I don't like the arts, like I don't like to actually create arts and crafts like with my hands. Like
I don't love arts. I do love arts and crafts. I do like them. But what I talk about, like fine-tune arting, I guess that would be arting. Fine-tune art would be very detail-oriented art. And I do love and have a passion for that. And I do here and there, like I'll draw things and I'll do it in a very detailed way. And that I hope to be able to go back to. But honestly, like I feel so rusty and out of it. Like I haven't done it in years. And like I just feel like it's not me anymore. But sometime I will. But creativity is part of my life. My mother is creative. My grandmother's creative. My grandmother's a very well-known interior decorator, which was not even heard of in the 1950s for women to do that kind of work.
Oh, wow.
My mother is very artistic and creative. And, I don't know. I don't know what's to be, but everybody expresses it in their own way. I don't know. I don't know what's going to do it. I have very creative kids now. I have one of my youngest is a very, very, like I see that she has that similar, very fine-tuned detail and toward realistic type of art. Like I was a realist type of artist, and I see she has that in her.
So cool.
I have kids that are musical. I'm not at all musical, but I have kids that are really into music. I love music, but I'm not musical. So I try to have like a creative home.
I love that.
And some years I'm better at it than others. And during COVID, I came up with the idea that we're going to make art boxes, and it was so cool. It was so fun. But I don't know if I could do that now. Like,
right. I know a lot of things happened in COVID that was like very special and unique to that time. Like not so practical when,
I loved it. I loved it. I had a lot of passion for that time. I had a lot of great things we did during that time. So, I know that that's like a negative thing. People don't like me to hear me talk about that I love COVID.
Well, there were some parts to it that were, really unique. And I feel
like that. I think like I talk about, people don't like me that was followers, like the fact that we lived during COVID and we didn't feel like traumatized by it, and that my kids didn't mind wearing masks. People were like, like, how can you say that? And people would unfollow me. And I'm like, I don't know. They just are okay with it. Like we're okay with it. We're like we've been through a lot of crap in our lives. This is not a big issue. Putting a piece of fabric over our mouths for a little while. Like, listen, like we've been through a lot, that we've dealt with. It's not. And my therapist during that time actually talked about a lot about like COVID and how I dealt with it as a family. She said, like, we had dealt with so much, like, having children, struggling with infertility, being able to have a child, then having a child with disability. Like, this is nothing. Like, I have to stay in my house.
Yeah, I actually know, like, I've discussed this, like for COVID, like people who've been through really hard things or people with anxiety, like they were like, oh, finally we're evening out the playing field. Now you know what it feels like to be me every day, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
For certain people and their experiences, it was like, oh, like we got this, but other people like turned their world upside down,
and are still traumatized by it. But again, COVID to me was, challenge accepted. Let's do this. And it was an interesting time, but I don't look at it in a negative time, but I did use it as a time to be creative. I need to like be re-inspired by that again. I am teaching once a week. I'm teaching an art class once a week to a school here. And I have been enjoying that. I've been teaching them like fine detailed art.
Yeah, that's a nice way to dip your toes back in.
Yeah, it is, because then I sort of draw and paint with them when they're behaving well. They're not always behaving because they're little kids and then big kids. And we'll see what happens.
Well, what brought you to Florida?
Being raised in Arizona, I always wanted to live in a warmer climate. When we moved, as I said, we chose for my husband to go to graduate school. So he went to graduate school in Boston. And then he was hired. Remember, I talked about we had Israel advocacy when we were young. My husband has a degree in a bachelor's in computer science, and then he went on to get a master's in Middle Eastern studies. And he studied all that. And so he was actually recruited by the CIA when we were in graduate school. I know. And so then we moved to the Baltimore area so he can work in Langley, Virginia, which is where the CIA headquarters were for a long time.
Oh, I did not know this. That is very cool.
You ever, they say don't marry your person, like you should marry your opposite. I married my opposite. Like here I am, the crazy, and
yeah, you're the one getting in trouble.
And I met the introverted CIA. He's an analyst. So I'm allowed to say that he did that because he was an analyst. He analyzed, and he worked in counterterrorism. We were there, and then when his job changed, and now he owns his own business, and he still works in a similar field. He works in cybersecurity, counterterrorism, all these type of things. We were at a point where I was like, what are we doing here? Like, I can't handle these winters. I was getting a lot of seasonal depression. I was not raised in this, and I always would go to Florida. We'd go to Florida all the time, and it took about 3 years for us to make this happen. And then we did, and I'm living my best life. I say I'm living in a Pesach program. Like, I love it here so much.
I love to hear that. So like it was a good move.
It's been 1 year. August, we've been here for 1 year, and it was the best. We rented when we moved here, which was weird. My husband and I are like, we're in college again. We have tubs for our sink,
Yeah.
But we just bought a house, thank God. And we're redoing it. And that's stressful for me. But, oh, man, I love it here so much. We have a great community, great shul. We're in a Lubavitch community, Parkland. I don't know how many people know about Parkland, but Parkland is a up-and-coming Lubavitch community. And it is a mix. So you can be sitting with a woman with a sheitel next to you and a woman in a tank top. And the greatest thing about it is nobody cares.
Yeah.
But now it's definitely a much larger Lubavitch community. We have a good amount of us, and it's just such a chill, relaxing, wonderful, warm, welcoming community. The Bistons are going to be very excited when they hear me say all this.
A plug.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a phenomenal community. It's hard to get a house here now because everybody wants to come to Parkland. But have you heard of Parkland as a community?
I've never been.
Never been. Yeah.
No.
It's great.
Yeah.
Great. And you're just so happy. And to have this warm climate all the time was like what I needed. My kids are struggling with the heat because they're born in Baltimore.
I'm used to it. Yeah.
But me, I never adapted to winter. And when I see your pictures of winter, I get like a little triggered. I'm not a triggered person.
I find myself like, I love Montana and I can't imagine living anywhere else, but the winter gets to me and it's 9 months. And I'm also very affected by the sun. And
Me
when
too.
the sun's not out, thank God in Bozeman, we do have a lot of sunny days, even though it's cold, but it wears on you. It really wears on you. And talk about like being tough. I always say, like, I find that for myself and for my kids who are growing up in it's such an extreme climate. It's so intense. It really, like, I see, like, they are tough. Like, their bodies are tough. They're strong. Their immune systems are better. Like, there's a little bit, even though it's not because of me, like, I get a little pride in that. I'm like, my kids are skiing blacks and they're out 20-degree weather and they're barely wearing a jacket. And it's character building. Honestly, like living in such an intense climate for so long is very character building.
I will tell you is that I do feel a little envious when I see your Montana pictures because I am like an outdoors person. I do love, like, as I said in the beginning of this, I was raised on our own land. And when I see like these images in your life, I'm like, oh, that. Like, I know I can't live in that winter, but maybe I could visit.
You definitely should come to visit.
How far is it from Florida? Can we take our camper?
So like, you could take the camper. We have people it will take you a long time. Yeah. Like Montana is all the way northwest and you are all the way southeast.
Yeah, exactly.
So almost like the far, like it's very, very far, but you can we have RVers all the time come chugging along.
It's my dream to become a full-time RVer. Like I always said, like during COVID,
I know.
I wish I would have known that it was going to go on as long as it did. I would have immediately gotten in that car, in our camper and been, see ya.
Traveling the world or the country.
Yeah.
Well, it was so fun.
Yeah.
To get a chat with you. And you're such a cool person. I love the way you approach life. I love, like, you're here for it. You're here for the challenges. You're here for the, for the hard stuff. And I feel like that humor, like I very much relate to it. And that's kind of how I like to go through life. I always tell people, I'm like, this is my life, right? This is the life that Hashem decided was for me. Like, I might as well be happy. Like, I might as well find the way to be in this world with all the circumstances. And I want to enjoy life. Like, I want to have a good life. So I'm not going to say it's not hard and there's challenges. And sometimes Like yesterday, I had 800 panic attacks about Rosh Hashanah coming up and, all the stuff on my plate. And that's real. But it is a general rule. I want to enjoy life.
100%. I want to enjoy every single minute of it. And that is why, I was excited to be able to talk with you on here. I've always enjoyed what you've done. I'm a follower of yours, and I don't follow a lot of people on social media.
I'm glad to make the list.
Because I don't want to follow, I'm very picky. There's a lot of stuff I'm just not interested in, but I'm interested in your journey and I love it. And I have to be honest is that I followed your journey probably when you didn't know, because there was a part of town that I lived in where you came for one of your children. I don't want to say that publicly, but you lived in. And so I knew that was going on. I kind of knew from the Lubavitch community, and we kind of knew what was going on. And I was so intrigued and so impressed. And so how do I know this person better? How do I make her part of my circle in my life? And so I'm really excited to be able to do this.
Yeah, here we are.
We're doing it.
In the circle. I love it. Okay. I hope you enjoyed that episode as much as I did. I don't even know where to start. There's so much going on. I've talked about on my Instagram, this chaotic Teves energy. And oh my gosh, do I feel it? It's a real thing. I don't care if you believe in whatever you believe in. There are energies in this world and they know how to manifest. And I just feel like having the information just gives you a little one step ahead. So instead of totally falling apart and losing it when there's all this chaos and big emotions, what it's about and you can foster it. I don't know, more information feels like more power, So I have so many things to reflect on. So much happened this morning that I'm just trying to regulate from. And I also have a bunch of question answers I want to talk about. So where to start? Okay. I'm going to start with today. Do you know when you have 4 things happening at the same time that each need your immediate attention? That's what happened to me this morning. So, going about drop the kids off from school, came home, was getting ready to take Ezzy, my dog, to the groomer. And then my daughter, Chaya, who's in Chicago, calls me that she's sick and she needs to go, check her ears, check her throat, all that stuff. But when you have a kid away from home and they get sick, oh my gosh, it's so hard because then they need to see the doctor. And then I have all these forms that I have to fill out just so she can go see the doctor, and insurance and ID. And you have to answer all these questions and you have to give permission for someone to take her. And then you're emailing these forms back and forth. And then once you fill out the forms, you have to call them and set up a chart. And then as you're setting up the chart, they're oh, you didn't do this right on the form. So go do that right on the form and then call back. I'm telling you, I can't deal with doctor's appointments locally. Dealing with them out of town is a whole new set of torture. Thank God. I mean, we were doing this together. We were trying to tag team it because as this is going on, we have other things going on. So as I'm dealing with this, I drop Ezzy off at the groomer. The groomer's far. It's a half an hour away. I'm 5 minutes from home. And in 7 minutes, I have an online consult appointment that I'm doing. And I get a call from the groomer. I have some not such good news that we were shampooing Ezzy and we found some lice. Guys, freaking out is not the word. I don't even know what that means. I've never had that experience. I've had a dog for almost 3 years, never had lice. He was at his babysitter dog watcher when we were in New York. And that's the only way I think that could have happened. But they're okay, we're gonna finish washing him, but you have to pick him up. He can't be at the groomer with lice. So I'm what do I do first? Do I turn around? I have an appointment. As I'm talking, I'm still trying to deal with Chaya's appointment. And then I also have to call the vet because I'm I don't know what to do with a dog with lice. What the heck? So I call the vet and they're don't freak out. It's totally fine. Like lice on dogs has nothing to do with humans and they don't live anywhere except on the body. So of course, like wash his bed as a precaution, but like literally it's a one pill. He'll get treated. You wash his bed. It doesn't go anywhere else. So you're fine. So we pick him up. Hamshal ended up picking Ezzy up, picked up his medicine, and I finished up with the doctor and I got onto my appointment 10 minutes late. I'm never late to anything. Really, really don't like doing that, but we got it all done. But I felt it in my body, like the pressure. It was like a pressure cooker, just like everything happening at once. And like when I'm saying this out loud, like it is nothing crazy. Like, thank God, everything's fine. I mean, California is burning down and I don't even know how people are managing. And I'm like having a panic attack because I have, a dog with lice and a kid who's sick in Chicago and an appointment and whatever. So I get that these are not like earth-shattering huge problems, but the thing that I want to address and the thing that I felt like that was so difficult is that when you can't choose which thing to do, like you have to do them all, and just the pressure around that. And yes, like the person who I was meeting with was amazing, so sweet. She's like, don't worry, take your time. Like I'm here. And so that was hugely helpful. But like these details, these technical things, these things you're trying to do from long distance, like that's where I struggle. Like it's not easy for me. So thank God we're all good. We're here. And I just thought, you obviously want to know about that. Like you obviously want to know every single bit about my day. So anyways, but I think it happens to all of us, we live busy lives and sometimes we don't get to like have this perfectly laid out schedule that goes exactly as planned. And oftentimes we're in these situations and I don't know, like I felt like I was doing my best to like stay regulated throughout the process, but I definitely felt it in my body. And so now, I did take time to just come down from that. But here we are. And I'm trying something a little different with the question answer. Like I gave a more specific topic to center it around, and we'll see how that goes. And the other thing that's very prevalent in my life right now is transition. So we're always transitioning from something, from one thing to another. And I do find transitions to be quite difficult for me and for my family. And I think if you are have some experience with like neurodivergent kids, it is a little bit more intense. So I was home with my kids for 3 weeks, meaning they were out of school for 3 weeks. We had 2-week winter break. And the week before winter break, we traveled to New York for the High Lifeline dinner, came home a day late because of travel shenanigans. And they ended up not being in school that week either. So 3 full weeks, the kids were out of school, out of routine. We traveled to Texas for a week for Hanukkah. We came home Sunday night, the night before school started at past midnight instead of like at 8:39 when we were supposed to land because of also more travel shenanigans and more delays. I do feel like we need to have a topic just on like travel trauma. I'm going to take note about that. And because that is like a very big thing that I deal with. And yet I still want to travel. So whatever, glutton for punishment. But anyway, so they get home, we get home super late. They're exhausted. We get the kids late to school the next day because I'm not waking them up after they got 6 hours of sleep. And the mornings are like back to like that morning routine I find so difficult. Like the one perk on break is that you're not like trying to get out the door at a certain time. And my kids rebel against that. They just don't want to do that. And we're always in some kind of power struggle. And even when I try to step out of the power struggle, I get pulled back in because I'm like, wear whatever you want, do whatever you like, but we do have to get into the car to school. And on Tuesday, yesterday, for me, a few days for when you'll actually hear this, but on Tuesday, we literally took her to school in pajamas, carried her into school in her pajamas because that's where we were at. So I find that that's hard. And I do find like coming back from from break to real scheduled life is hard, and vice versa. Like anytime we're transitioning into something, it's hard. Many had a really hard time transitioning from elementary school to middle school. Like transitions are really hard. So I put it out there. Like I wanted to hear some of your experiences, questions, thoughts, tips on transitions. I got a lot of people's own experience, like what they're struggling with. And I want to share because I do want this, like I keep saying it, but I'm going to say it again. I want this to be interactive. I want to connect with you. So it doesn't only have to be a question that you're sharing. I can also share thoughts, some little anecdotes that you share with me that I can share with everybody else. So always keep that in mind. And I also got some really good tips. Like there's some tips out there. And I have some of my own ways that I navigate. So the first thing I want to start with is some of the experiences that people are having and some of the struggles and gosh, life is hard. So let me pull it up. Somebody shared that they recently got married and had to move across the world to a new country. And it's been really hard to start from scratch, not knowing anyone. That is really, really hard. Like not even moving within the country, but across the world, different culture, different language, not knowing anybody. That's a lot. That's a lot. If anybody has done that before and wants to share some things that helped for you, please do that because I've never had to do that. So I don't have any specific insight to give around that particular scenario. But if you have done that and there were things that were helpful to you, let's share, let's pass it on. The other thing that just broke my heart that somebody shared was that they just lost their son in the summer and they've had to transition a lot, like Yuntif, school season, so difficult. And she says, like, I know this is extenuating circumstances, but it's also a transition. It is the transition. I mean, first of all, I'm so sorry. All my love. Like, this is something that nobody should ever have to face and to deal with. And just coping with that loss and then being confronted with milestones or, life cycle events like going to school and celebrating Yuntif and all those things without your child that you've lost. I can't even imagine what that must feel like. So the only thing that I can provide is some empathy and love and know that we're here. And if there's anything that people in your life can do to help, ask for it. Ask for help because doing this alone should not happen. I don't think you are, but it's always a reminder, like when we're in such a difficult and profoundly like breaking point in our lives, it's so hard to reach out. But if you can do, and if people offer to help you, like accept, because this is something that needs a lot of support and people around you. Someone said, it was a little bit, I have some tips. Someone said when it's a transition or a stressful time, she makes sure to have some like fun things in her schedule, like a date night or a massage or like a chiropractor visit, or I don't know, like pick whatever you like to do, manicure, coffee dates, whatever. I really like that tip. I don't know if I've ever done that consciously, but I feel like that's a really good kind of thing to take into consideration. Like plan some fun things so the transition doesn't feel as brutal because you know that your kids are going to struggle during transition. You're going to struggle during transition. And so we all need a little bit of relief from that. And I think even to take it a step further, maybe plan some of those things for your kids, like knowing your kids are going to have a difficult time transitioning, maybe planning some little fun little things in the evening after school or a special snack or, something that can help ease the harshness of the transition. I really love that tip. So I really appreciated that tip. And let's see, I have some more here. So I'm going to read to you what somebody shared with me that I also really appreciated. So she says, For me, when transitioning from vacation or family trip or winter break or a holiday or anything of substantial length, I sit down and formulate my thoughts and reminisce about the experience and get it all out and really let myself say goodbye to whatever it was. I then start forming a to-do list for the days coming. If it's getting back into routine for everyone, I form a list for kids of things to prep for them, and then for myself of upcoming events or just basic things around the house. It helps me ease my way back in, and also want to mention that oftentimes when something big is coming up out of routine, I do the same thing because I am transitioning from routine to not, and I hope this makes sense. Oh my gosh, it makes a whole lot of sense. This was also something that I did not actually consciously think of. Taking the time to reminisce and to really absorb and feel the joy and the memories and the experiences that you had, and like properly like say goodbye to it and like consciously move forward. I love that. The list thing is a little bit more common. Like we all try to keep our lives organized and try to see what's coming, but does help to remember, like write down the things that are coming up, write down the things that your kids are going to need, write down the things that maybe are like missing from your home while you were gone, groceries, whatever. That's also really good. But it's really, really powerful I love that, like that intentional, like you're making that transition intentional instead of just like throwing yourself into it and it happening whether you like it or not, because that's what's going to happen. Like it happens whether you like it or not, but sitting down and like you kind of taking control over that transition and intentionally moving through it is really cool. I thought that was awesome. So I'm definitely going to implement those 2 tips that I just shared. Amazing. So and then I want to end off with a question that came in, and I thought it was a really good question. The question was, what's your ideal travel at home ratio, like where everything seems balanced? This is like such a good question because I feel like there's the ideal and then there's like what actually happens. So for me, it depends also like what type of trip. Like if I'll speak from my experience because that's what I can speak from. But let's say I'm doing like a quick speaking engagement. I think that's easily done like once a month, right? I can handle that once a month, maybe even every 3 weeks. It doesn't feel too disruptive because I'm in and out. Usually, okay, it's 2 days off of my schedule, but that's manageable. When I'm away for a longer period of time, like I'll give an example for now. Like we were just in Texas for the last week of winter break, me and the 3 kids who live at home. And it wasn't like a big family adventure trip, but we were away from home. It was amazing, beautiful Hanukkah. We come back and then I'm home for a week. And then on Sunday, when you listen to this, I will already be there. I'm going to Mexico for my yoga retreat that I have been going to for the last 7 years. So that is not ideal. Like being home for 1 week and on either end, there's like significant trips. I feel very not grounded. I feel like there's so much going on. There's so much I have to fit into a week. There's so many responsibilities. And because I was just away and now I'm leaving again, it feels a little bit not super manageable and not ideal. So ideally, like if you're having like a week-long trip, I prefer like having a month or 2 in between those trips because there's something to be said about having routine and getting into the groove and having some stability. But that being said, that very rarely happens for me. Like there's always something going on. And I always find myself having to travel for whatever reason. Sometimes it's purely recreational and sometimes it's work, you know? And I know this is like very first world problem-y, but we're on this subject about ideal and balance. Having a trip and then a week in between and a trip right after is not ideal and is not balanced. Now, I'm still doing it and it's still going to be great. And we'll have to powwow about my Mexico yoga retreat experience on another podcast because I'm probably already way past my time. But the desire and the benefits of going still outweigh the kind of chaotic feeling that I have. So there's that. Anyway, that was a fun little catch up. Please keep interacting. Let me know if you have more travel tips, or actually more than travel tips, more transitioning tips and or thoughts or questions or ideas. And I just have to end off with a little footnote, which is something I've been really thinking about lately, is like how the podcast has kind of evolved. I mean, it's still very new, but it's really fun to see that I named the podcast Totally Unexpected, because that's what I felt I wanted to talk about, is the unexpected things in people's lives that happen and that shape us, that make us who we are, right? And I just knew that that's what I wanted to do, but not always does the name end up panning out, and that ends up being what happened and who you end up interviewing. And I just have to say, it's really, really fun and really cool to see that theme and that thought and that idea is really coming through. Like, just for example, in this last episode with Sheva, like Sheva struggled, like she struggled even to have children. And then her third child, she had no heads up, no warning, and her child was born with Down syndrome. I mean, that's unexpected, right? And you can go through each and every episode and find the unexpected thing that really was a turning point for each of the guests that I have. And I just was reflecting on that and was like, wow, it's really cool. Like, it's actually working. So thank you all for being here and being such wonderful community, friends, family, and see you next time. Okay, so this podcast does not come about magically, and I don't do it alone. I have such an amazing team behind me that makes this all happen. Obviously, I'm your host, Chavie. Our producer and creative director is Eli Bedchian. He's awesome. Wouldn't have this without him. Audio is edited and mixed by Reed Seeley. Music by Bastia Schechter and Daniel Ori. And this is Totally Unexpected.